this talk is part of a section that Mandy and I came up with 5 years ago called Crosscuts, where we sort of mix and match directors from different sections of the New York Film Festival lineup to see what interesting connections we can generate. We're used to hearing from filmmakers at Q&As, at talks, at festivals. But what's really exciting about a film festival is tracing connections between different titles in contemporary cinema. And this particular pairing came to me very, very early on. The films All We Imagine Is Light by Payal Kapadia and Grand Tour by Miguel Gomes, both screened at this year's Cannes in competition. Both won prizes. All We Imagine Is Light won the Grand Prix. Miguel won Best Director. And Payal actually thanked Miguel in her speech, and Miguel was in the audience. And, which made me realize that she was a fan of Miguel's. But even before that, I had felt like the films really speak to each other in many ways, not including the fact that they're both about cowardly husbands on the run and wives yearning for them stubbornly. So I won't say more because there's so much more to get into, but please welcome to the stage Payal Kapadia and Miguel Gomes. All right. Thank you both so much for doing this. And Payal, as I said, this seemed really like a talk we had to do once I explicitly heard you, sort of paying tribute to Miguel's work as an important inspiration for you. Let's start there. I mean, when did you first encounter his work, and what impression did it make on you?
It's very surreal for me to be sitting here with Miguel Gomes. When I was a student at the Film and Television Institute of India, we had to do, I've told him this, so we had to do like a thesis on some topic that you feel interested in cinema. And I was very much, I'd say, let's be truthful, obsessed with the films of Miguel Gomes. And I watched them a lot, and I was really they had opened up a space in my mind that made me feel much more free as a filmmaker to mix very effortlessly different forms and to take a risk with narrative and the lack of sometimes and meandering. And I think when you're starting out as a filmmaker, sometimes you feel nervous about what you're doing or how to do it. And there are some filmmakers' works you see and you feel liberated. And I was very inspired by his films, and I did my thesis project on some of his work, along with a film of Apichatpong, which was Mysterious Object at Noon.
Apichatpong presented us. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
That night?
Yeah, it was a dream-like night for me because I had too much wine, and we were at the FID festival in Marseille, and I was sitting with Miguel Gomes and Apichatpong. It was nice. I think that's the nice things about film festivals. You get to meet people whose work you watched for so long, and it's nice to interact and talk about it, and it's a privilege.
And Miguel, when did you first encounter Payal's work?
She was presented to me by Apichatpong. So he came to me and said, Miguel, do you know Payal? And I said, yeah, I don't know her, but I saw she was in Director's Fortnight in 2021, I think, in Cannes, but I didn't spoke to her. And she said, yeah, meet her. She's a very gentle person that has excellent taste, because she made a thesis on your film Our Beloved Metabolist. And my first film, Mysterious Object at Noon. I said, oh, let's talk with her. She sounds interesting. And then I had the opportunity to see her first film. It's your first film, The Night of Knowing Nothing. And I was really amazed by this film. Yeah. And then we can, I mean, life is strange, you know, because then after Cannes, after I met her at Marseille, she was looking for an apartment in Paris. And she found one, and she would she should take care of a cat in this apartment. And then she told us the cat was named was Gatsby, and Gatsby was the cat of my wife, Maureen. So she was by chance in the apartment that Maureen shared with a friend, and it was by chance she went to the same house of my wife, the former house of my wife.
Wow.
So
I did not know this before putting
yeah,
you
it's a
both
revelation.
together. So
No one knows. I'm sharing this. I don't know what's Payal feeling about this cat issue, but
The Gatsby issue.
yeah,
That's true.
we thought this is really weird.
actually, it is kind of a perfect segue into my next question, which is how both your films, your filmmaking processes are very open to chance and discovery. I know that both, Grand Tour and All We Imagine Is Light, though to different extents, occupy a sort of mix between documentary and fiction. That's important to both of you in your practice. And, Payal, you said yesterday in the Q&A how you do interviews, you film footage just of people before you even start filming the actual, movie. And create this kind of archive of testimonies of images, and you build your films out of that. And Miguel, I know Grand Tour was a little bit developed like that. You went on this Grand Tour, filmed footage in various cities, and sort of then started building the narrative around it. So can we get into that a little bit? This process you both have of discovering that seems balanced between discovery and then scripting and construction.
I don't know. I think that in my case is that I'm not talented enough to, no, this is true, to just go into like an office or in my house and to create from the scratch something. I mean, Hitchcock could do it. I can't. I mean, it's I don't have enough. There's something missing, so I have to react to things. I don't know what's your.
No, it's. I also think that life gives you much more than I think I can imagine, and can be more interesting than cinema most times. And for me, that becomes a lot of the material to take from, because really, like, people tell you all kinds of things, and I just put them into the film.
And I would love to know specifically in the making of Grand Tour and All We Imagine as Light, what did that sort of documentary-ish process, how did that feed the film? Like, maybe Miguel, you could talk a little bit about that, the cinematographic tour that preceded the making of Grand Tour, and how did it maybe even change your understanding of what this film was going to be?
It forced us to react, which is we have. I think sometimes we have to create our own limitations. I mean, in the beginning, everything is possible, and then you start to reduce space. Don't have all the possibilities, but you have possibilities that you could not have imagined by yourself. Understand? It's so I traveled. I did this itinerary that the character should do in a I don't know who had this idea, but it was a brilliant idea. I have to say it. And so yeah, and we shooted this trip we made, and then only after we went back home to write, to react, to create, fictional scenes that was connected with the things we shot. So I was creating like a context in order to create fiction. And I could not have seen in Cannes. I could not see Payal's film, and I don't know. It's like a conspiracy of programmers because they put every time our films very close. I don't know if you noticed, but in every festival, it's kind of difficult for me to see Payal film because it's so close to my film and I have something to do. So I just saw it in Beijing 2 weeks ago. I would prefer to see it on I think I will see it on the cinema because in the computer it doesn't count that much for me. But anyhow, watching the film, the beginning of the film, it's like this big bang of images and of sounds. It's very musical. The melodies just they mix and mingle, and it's like a whole city. You can have like billions of characters coming from this city. They are being born of this big bang, this city. Then there's a moment where Payal isolates the characters and she tells what they are living at that moment, these characters. But she needed the city to have the characters. You see how things are coming from. And in the beginning, there's no face. It's only voices that you'll never get to see, saying things about the city, about what's living in this city. And I really love films that are portraits of places that have a land. I mean, it's not like, The Lord of the Rings. I mean, they have a land, but I don't believe in this land that much, or I don't care. Oz, I care. Lord of the Rings, I don't care. But I don't blame anyone who cares about Lord of the Rings. And but you really can see how from where it is coming, and that's very powerful. So I think we all, in different ways, we need a context.
Yeah, that's true. This thing about limitations that Miguel brought up was kind of the way I started working with nonfiction in the first place. Because when I was a student, I was in a school where they were transitioning between celluloid to digital. So nobody really knew how to make this shift. So most of the teaching was still in the mindset of celluloid. So we would have to shoot a documentary, but we would only get the camera for 6 days and for a fixed amount of time and 132 GB card. So now we are taught in class that documentary you must go shoot for many days and observe life and this, that. But now if you're given this camera just for 6 days, you've done all this research, what are you going to do? So this was a limitation, and of course as students you will complain and say, how can they do this? But limitations actually lead to a lot of unexpected magic, and it was when I went to make this documentary, it was in a place that was about 2 hours away from where I lived, but I did have a sound recorder with me, and because I didn't have a camera, so I was taking the sound recorder and I was recording a lot of audio interviews of people. Sometimes I would just be hanging out in somebody's house and we would be making bhakri, and I would say, "Can I keep my recorder here? Is it okay?" And we would just have conversations like that recorded on audio. Then I had made this great plan of making this documentary. It was all about this man who was looking for bees in this mountainous place, and I was convinced, maybe also because of Miguel Gomes, that because he made a film about bees, about wasps. Wasps.
Different.
I was really into the bees for some reason.
They both sting, you're fine.
Yeah, well, anyway, so I went there to shoot this film and I shot it and I was saying, okay, this is great, I have all this material. Then I came back and looked at it and saw that it was really bad. And then I said, now what to do? We have to submit the film, and that's part of film school life. So I started listening a lot to the audio I had recorded, and there was a whole world there that I could never have imagined to write out. And there were these stories that the women were telling me or complaining about, the husband, or complaining about not having enough chilies today in the house or something like this all the time. And somehow it made for me, a narrative that was much more interesting than the narrative I had sought out. And that was nice. That made me feel like, okay, maybe through sound I can approach this film. And I constructed the script using all these found voices and making an edit with the sound, and then using kind of the B-roll of what I had actually wanted to shoot, and made a film like this. And I don't know, it kind of very freed me up about restrictions in cinema, that you can try to find some other way, and really reality gives you a lot, and we as filmmakers are very privileged to be looking at it and to be responding to it. And then that kind of became the form that I liked to use even again in Night of Knowing Nothing, which has a lot of interviews and people talking without actually seeing their faces, because I find that this juxtaposition of a ambiguous voice with the city creates some space for the viewer to also to fill this gap somehow, and with their memories and experiences, and perhaps imagine who this person could be who's talking in this place.
I mean, Miguel, you have a sort of maybe similar approach to voice and sound. Grand Tour and several of your other films have a disembodied sort of voiceover narrator. And you've also talked about how it's important for you to use sound and image as specific and sometimes distinct elements. Can you speak to that aspect?
Yeah, it's better to have two films playing at the same time than just only one. It's mathematical. Because when you have two films running at the same time, you have 3 films at the same time, because you have, for instance, the film of the sound, the film of the image, and the result between the clash of these 2 films, they will give birth to a 3rd film inside the viewer's mind.
I agree. I don't have anything to add to that. It's exactly how I was also thinking about this, and I think the human mind can take a lot in without much explanation. We should let it be sometimes.
I'm also interested in talking about color. While both your films have a lot of sort of interest in the night, how it looks like on film, but also as like a refuge of you, as a space where certain things happen that don't happen during the day. And somehow, Miguel, when I think of your films, I think of a nocturnal vibe, even though they're not always set in the night. I think maybe it's because of the way you use light and dark, black and white and color. And I'd love to just talk about that, your relationship with light in your filmmaking for both of you? It seems like such an important symbolic element in the films.
I mean, I see it more, I think light and the space we're in affects our mind and how we feel, and the weather, and we come from a country where the light remains the same. There's no seasonal change. There is the monsoon, and then there is hot season throughout the year. So there's no this romanticism of it's going to be 1 hour of magic light and I will shoot this beautiful scene. We don't have that. It's not there. It's 3 minutes of magic light. That's it. It's gone. So I was thinking a lot about the experience of light in the night, and how neon light, or what we call in India tube light, which here you all call fluorescent light. I was corrected yesterday. Which is a very much part of Indian life, this very flat kind of fluorescent light. So all these things I feel affect one's mood and one's feeling, and that's why we take holidays in the summer, those who can. And the night also, for me, in cities is a place of self-discovery and a lot of possibility in the darkness.
And in a night of knowing nothing, what kind of prompted the decision to use black and white for a lot of the movie?
I could say something profound, but I'll tell the truth.
Yeah, no. That's why I brought out the wine.
While making the film, I was very inspired by, these movies from the 60s of the new wave, and I had this kind of love for them. And I was making a film about my film school, and I felt that the black and white image of a 16mm camera would work, but I had no money. So I took a 5D Mark II and put a stocking in the front of it and shot a film. It's also good because I'm lucky, because my cinematographer is somebody who worked on both films, Ranbir Das, who is not interested in very clean images. And the dirtier it is, the more fun we have with it. So that was that kind of frees you up also a lot. So we decided to shoot with this 16mm, fake 16mm style. And finally it worked for me, because the film ended up becoming an archive film, and I got footage from a lot of other people who had been shooting also, and they gave me the footage. So it helped. And my cinematographer also was the editor. So the choice of images used, even though it's an editing process, it's still a cinematography process as well. And then that choice it's good to make it homogeneous with black and white. So but more fundamentally, I thought it evoked a feeling of nostalgia. But I wanted to be a nostalgia for this time that we were students at the film school, and it was a moment of great love and affection for us, and for me that texture gave me that feeling.
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe night is cinema. I mean, it's for instance, in the ending of your film, I think it would be difficult to imagine what is happening during daytime. No? In your film, this moment where this nurse that has her husband emigrated in Germany, I think. And you see at the same time that she saved a stranger. It's not her husband, but every second it starts to be more and more her husband. 2 films at the same time. That's the good ones. When it's when you have 2 films at the same time, and I could not imagine this during daytime.
Yeah.
I think it's so. After showing Arabian Nights to Cannes, which is a place that can be very and put on your nerves if you stay for too long. In 2015, I went to a festival quite different than Cannes. It was the Aki Kaurismäki festival.
Oh, wow.
He has a festival in almost in the North Pole, in the north region of Finland, where Santa Claus comes every Christmas, and there is the festival is called Midnight Sun Film Festival. I don't know if there's someone that went to this festival, but it's magical. Why? Because the sun never goes down in that period of it's like in June, so the sun goes down, 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 and then it starts to go up. It never disappears. So you don't have night in this place, in this festival. But you have, it's like in the middle of nowhere, really. And so they have like a big circus tent with 3,000 places, seats. And so it's the only place where you have dark, you have the night, is the cinema. It's this inside this tent. And so maybe this is why I think cinema is the night, because I had really the feeling that in this place, the only way to have access to the night was inside the cinema. So thank you, Kaurismäki, for inviting me and to clarify this issue. It was useful for this moment of our discussion.
And what about in Grand Tour, Miguel? I mean, what sort of guided choices of color palette with the various footage in Grand Tour? The footage captured in cities, which is present day, and then the studio footage.
What was the criteria for?
Or why did you decide to go with black and white for the studio scenes, color for the city scenes?
As Payal said, I could say very profound things, but I'll just tell the truth. So I was working in studio in old-fashioned way with construction. It's much more easier to eliminate color, to have the layers in a very artificial space as a studio to get more organical and a little bit more, artificial but real. With color is much more hard, and it looks not so good. And then also I knew that I would mix footage that I would shoot during the trip in Asia, and it's a very different kind of material we are putting together, so we don't need like more another more collision between. It would be more violent if I was using color. So to put it a little bit more homogeneous, I decided to use black and white for very practical reasons. And also it happens that I think we should do films with things we like, and I like black and white. But I also like color. This is why sometimes you have color in the film. It's true, because I use color. I was shooting on black and white film stock, and so as in black and white you only have one kind of sensibility. It's no good for night scenes. It's more difficult. Yeah. So we had to use color and then to have like a good image, quality of image, and then we would turn this in black and white while we were editing the film. So for a moment, all the film was black and white. Of course, that editing takes time. There was a moment we were fed up with the black and white. We turned on the color and said, "Wow, well, let's." There's no logical, but it's beautiful. Yeah. You have color appearing.
Yeah. No, it seems that the edit process is very important for both of you, and there is a sense watching the films that a lot of it does come together in the edit. Could you talk about how you work with your editors and how you approach that process in relation to the shooting, the production? Thank you, Miguel.
I'm working.
Yeah, like it's for every film it's a different process. It's not there's you're dealing with different material, different way of shooting, different way to put a narrative into the film. So, for example, Night of Knowing Nothing was really in the editing that we wrote the film.
Right.
So there was, there was a lot of like writing plus editing going on at the same time, and a lot of rewriting and a lot of, segments we didn't end up using and things like this, which happened because of the juxtaposition of the text and the material that you had, because you're watching and you're like, okay, this is there, but I have to make a text that has, that is going to be played on this, and what will that feel like? But for this film, there was a script. But we shot a lot of extra material, like the city, and without having a plan as to how we were going to use it. And we said that we had the desire to continuously document Mumbai. Again, we used a very small camera, a DSLR, to just go out and shoot a lot, because nowadays any kind of material can look like other material. So that fear was not there that much, so we could kind of use any camera to do this. So we shot a lot of days. Also, like the film was, there was a lot of waiting, like the monsoon would never rain like when we wanted it, and all this was there. And so we had
You didn't have budget for rain?
We had a hose pipe. So so you can't really like make the rain come on buildings with the hose pipe. No? So we had to wait a lot, and waiting is expensive if you have fancy equipment. So we shot a lot of extra footage of the city, and I also think that when you you shoot a city, there is a city like Mumbai especially, you can't recreate that. Like it's impossible to create Muhammad Ali Road in this vast road where there's so much chaos and so much life. To recreate that, I was not able to do it. So I felt that we would shoot a lot, basically. And finally in the editing, we did a lot of permutation combinations, and it took some long time to work it out. But it's a very, I enjoy this process. Like it's like playing a game. And you can, and that is something that I also learned from the films of Miguel Gomes, because he always, there's a film where he starts almost as if he's setting the rules of a game. Two films actually. And I was thinking a lot about this playful quality of dealing with editing like a game, where where you find the pieces of the puzzle, they don't entirely work. Then you figure out how to make it work, and this is the joy of making films, almost like a kind of a piece of craft.
I also did Payal, so there's a moment we don't know really what we are doing. We are editing but writing at the same time, and there is not one moment of editing, there's many. So there was, I start to edit before officially shooting. You have to write something on the, what's the name in English of the
Clapper?
The clapper.
Yeah.
You have to write something. So we did it was a very extensive sentence, second unit, I don't remember. But it was a second unit, the idea, it was not what they call principal photography. We were doing this also for bureaucratic reasons, because the funding system in Europe, it's great to have it, but sometimes it has like a perverse thing, which is they also impose lots of rules, and so to get some fundings, we needed not to have shot before. So we, on the clapper, we put a second unit, if you're reading these people from the fundings, don't give us the money because we are not actually shooting the film, but we are. So we had these things. And I edit this material before writing the script, as I told you before. So this was already editing, and we didn't have the script. And then when we shot the studio sequences, we got back to the editing, and we were writing the voice over. So we were again writing. So it's a very organical process. I also see it in Payal's film. But the whole system is made for you to do like what you are supposed to do, which is like you write, you get money, you shoot, you edit, you have a finished film. That's it, the plan. And but I think that we share this idea that the result of a film comes from a process, and this process cannot sometimes be the official one. Let's call it this way. And so we have to make up. One of our jobs, I think, is to invent a way to make a film that will give different results from doing
The formula.
Yeah, I just want to. I think also that there is a lot of not knowing, and there is joy in also not knowing things. And if you go
knowing
with
nothing.
No, yeah, so I like the not knowing sometimes also, which is leaves room for possibility.
So as I said in my introduction, one big similarity between the films, among many, is that they're about absent husbands. Grand Tour, the first half follows Edward as he's going on this grand tour, and you think he's this classic British colonial explorer. No, he's just running away from marriage, you know? And the second half of the film is his fiancée trying to track him down. And Miguel, in the press notes for Grand Tour, you said you somehow had the idea for the film on the eve of your wedding? Or
no, I don't think I said it that way. You know?
But maybe you also referenced that it also came from a Somerset Maugham short story. But maybe we could talk a little bit about that, this narrative premise, you know, of the stubborn woman, as you say, and the cowardly man, and how it's really striking to me how both films, in different ways, are driven by women who are longing, you know? And it's amazing in Grand Tour to see a woman do the Grand Tour, right? These are not necessarily images, accounts that you hear of women going on these sort of colonial expeditions. But she's not driven by any great, like, I'm going to see the world. She just wants to find her man and marry him. I mean, so it's a very potent premise that really centers, like, women's yearning, women moving through the world.
Yeah. I think it's quite dangerous today, like, to have very definitive theories about men and women. So it's kind of dangerous ground. But, you know, I think maybe you're telling about this, and I think you should have been not 2, but 3, because Jajanke is missing here. So because he also has, have you seen his film?
No, I haven't.
No? It's about, you know, have you seen Still Life?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's
the central part of his film. So about a woman going after a guy. So, I mean, there's lots of It's like apparently like a subject very with many filmmakers interested in. Yeah, I think that the Somerset Maugham 2 pages that in this book called "A Gentleman in the Parlor," which is a travelogue. It's really a joke. It's really a joke about men being cowards and women being stubborn. But I think in cinema sometimes it's good to work with cliches, and try to do something with them. So I think they, in a way, they are, like you say, they are still what the joke is saying they are, but it's they are a little bit more than this. So our Edward is a big coward, but I learned something with the actor in the press conference in Cannes. Someone asked a question about his character, and he said, "But I never saw him as a coward." And I said, "Wow, that's interesting, because things cannot only be one thing." And Molly, people tend to love Molly. No, she's kind of psychopathic in the end of the film, I guess. So things are ambiguous, which is great. I think that even in classical American cinema, where things were really stereotyped, but there was this amazing ambiguity in the characters, in the stories, which is something that I think we cannot lose in cinema.
I mean, Payal, I think I want to ask the same question of you, the centering of, like I said, a yearning woman. But one other similarity is women traveling in both films. Like a woman on a train, a woman on a boat. You open with the scene of Anu asleep on the Mumbai metro. And to me, that was a very important sort of motif in the film. Women traveling at night, by themselves, and that portrait of Mumbai from the point of view of working women, commuting women. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think Mumbai is a city that has a little bit more freedom for women than compared to other parts of our country, and and sometimes people are just forced to travel home late because they work late shifts. There's no choice. There's no choice in this matter. And somehow the city has designed itself, thankfully, on protecting the night for women to travel. I think it's a little bit safer in Mumbai than many parts of India. And the ladies' compartment being like a space which is I don't know. Whenever I travel in the ladies' compartment, I think there's a lot of cinematic moments there, and it's just we basically have like a few compartments in our trains which are only for women, so that it's safer to travel by these compartments, and you always find like networks and friendships and strange activities sometimes going on in these compartments. You can do shopping, you can cut your vegetables, you can do your accounts, you can do many things in the ladies' compartment. You make friends who are just your travel friends. So you only met them on the train, and because they take the same train every day, they are your friends, they will save you a seat. So there's like a whole thing shared about travel and friendship made, which is for me, a very Mumbai thing, because, it's, you take 2 hours to get from one place to the other in that train. So let's make the most of it. And it's also like really not pleasant to travel if you don't get a seat. And if you have a friend who you meet and, you know all about their lives, and often I've said, oh, she's like, we've heard people say that this is my train friend. And that's normal. That's very Bombay. So, I wanted to kind of pay respect to this ladies' compartment, which has given us so many friendships and so many moments of delight and pain. That.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, both films also have this like play with language. So, Miguel, I mean, the film is about a British civil servant, during the British Empire in Southeast Asia. But the characters speak Portuguese, but a lot of different languages come up. And Payal, I mean, you chose to have your protagonist speak Malayalam, which is, that really marks them as immigrants to Mumbai. It's also not a language you speak, to my understanding. So what was that process like, it seems like there was like a process of translation in the making itself of these films, and maybe displacement even.
It was a very crazy decision. I don't know what got into me to make a film in a language I don't speak. But yeah, I wanted to have because Mumbai is about that. It's about languages you hear from everywhere, and it's a very multilingual city, a bit like New York, I think, because here also I hear Tamil and like so many languages on the streets. And I found that if I didn't address the question of language, it wouldn't feel right to me as representing this city. And language is an interesting thing because it can firstly cause a lot of alienation, that you're in a place where you don't speak the language. Like one of the characters in the film, the lonely doctor who has to leave Bombay finally because he doesn't speak Hindi, and he's totally alienated from the space because of that. And for those of you who don't know the context in India, we speak languages that really we don't understand each other. It's not like similar sometimes. No, like I don't understand Malayalam. I don't understand it at all. So, that can be really, I think, an alienating thing in a big city to not speak the dominant language. But it's also language creates privacy. Like we can break into our own language and say very personal things in a really crowded train, and no one will understand because we speak like a dialect of Kutchi maybe, and you can make a private room just with language in a crowded space. So I was interested in all these aspects of languages in big cities. So for some reason Malayalam felt like the language to make the film in. Also because the film is about nurses, and it's a cliche also that there are Malayali nurses who are the most, it's a profession known for Malayali women to take up. So it made sense for me at that point to go with Malayalam, which is, I don't know. But I had like a writer to work on the text, and the actors also worked on it, and it took 2 years to kind of make it that I could be comfortable with directing in a language I don't speak.
Yeah, and I guess that when we are making a film, we try to have things that are familiar to us, but also things that are unfamiliar. That's very challenging and interesting, no? So, yeah, in the case of the Grand Tour, it's a film about people that don't understand most of the things they are seeing. They don't understand. It's not a film about these guys that are traveling and through the contact of the others, they see the light and the meaning of life. It's not one of these films. I don't think I could ever make a film like this. So it's about people that don't understand shit. They don't understand shit of what they are living. And so we had met always the idea to have characters looking a little bit living with people talking and without subtitles, so they don't get what is happening to and also in this Grand Tour, of course, we like traveling, and one of the ways we can travel is by language too. So I really love the idea of, let's say, start a shot with a voiceover in Filipino, and then in the middle there was a Japanese voice taking over. And this kind of music that it produces was something that I was fascinated with, so this was appealing to me.
Well, I have one more question, and then we'll open it up to the audience. So just hold on to your questions for one more minute. This is going to be a kind of a vague question, and I hope you'll bear with me. But both your films, all of the work that both of you do is very beautiful, and I don't mean that in a glib way. I think you both think about beauty very seriously. Beauty as a cinematic experience. Beauty as also something that can deliver something deeper, that can deliver something political just through the experience of bringing us in contact with something sublime or ineffable. And I was wondering if you both could just speak to that. How...
I don't know. I feel like there is a lot of representation of the spaces that I have shot in the film, which have been very not beautiful. And I didn't, for me, the joy of filmmaking is to find the beauty in very banal things like kitchen appliances. So
yes, the rice cooker in All We Imagine Is Light.
As daily life, to see things which are that you see every day, but how it can still be something magical or profound, or like the steam that comes out from a cooker, or the way the water falls when your pipe breaks, for example, and you have to clean it. And these everyday moments can be beautiful also, and I feel the pleasure of looking at it that way, and I think that's what makes its way into films.
And the impressive thing is that you try to capture beauty with a rice cooker, and then our life changes, because I was in Korea last week in the Busan Film Festival, and there was this shopping mall I had to go to get into the theater, and there was this rice cooker with steam, and I had to go with, and I was like always going to the cinema and looking and say, Payal.
Oh, that's nice.
No, it's true. It's true. And yeah, I think we should put things that I don't think we can like run away, like Edward, to things that are more, like, as Payal put it, like daily life, normal things. But yeah, I think I share the same idea that it's our job to capture grace and beauty because they exist. And I don't understand that much, these film directors that I would not say their names, of course, but
Have one more drink.
Even with 3 bottles, I will never say the... No, it's... but that do films to show how the world is fucked up, basically. And, I think the world is quite pretty much fucked up. I have this impression. But I know, just make films with things we dislike. Like, okay, you see how ugly this is? Let's do like a collective punishment. I mean, it's not my cup of tea. Let's say it this way. So I prefer cinema that try to have, not to do a curtain to hide that sometimes the world and people can be mean and that the world can be ugly, but with grace inside, because You know, let's not say names of directors that I don't like. Let's say one I like, and I've learned a lot from him. A great director called Jean Renoir, and sometimes he was filming ugly things, but always with grace. What is, for instance, what's the 39? Michael Almeida. What's in English the name of La Règle du Jeu?
I don't know French. So
No, the rules of the game.
Rules of the game. Oh.
So, yeah, the rules of the game. It's like an awful world with everything falling apart. But there's grace in every sequence. It's amazing. So, yeah, and.
Well, that was very beautifully said, both of you. Thank you for that. And let's take some audience questions over here, and a mic will be brought down to you. So just hold on for just a second. Here, this lady. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to ask Miguel, the music is fantastic and entertaining and surprising. And I'm just wondering, obviously different pieces come up at different, the guy singing My Way karaoke in a language, I don't even know what language that was, but then also you're just your own.
It was English.
No,
English.
you're singing English,
Yeah,
really? Okay, even better. So, but there were other, like the scene of the traffic spinning, and you were playing a waltz or a
Strauss,
polka.
yeah.
So famous, yeah, really, but fantastic use. So when does that come to you? Is it while you're filming? Is it in the editing? Is it before, while you're writing? Is it all the time?
Yeah, it's interesting question because it's like I was telling about the organical process of making a film, and the use of music, it's also quite organical. So, for instance, this idea of having the waltz came because we researched how it was in Bangkok during that period. In Thailand, they were never colonized. They were very clever conducting, international politics, doing many different things, associating and disassociating with many countries. They were very quick doing this, and there was like these parties in the royal palace, and they would do things like you see in the film. So, like this strange scene with people running with faces of animals. They would do like these contests with the British and the diplomats of European countries. They would do these silly things. We read about it. It's documented. And also they played, they had sometimes big orchestras to please the Europeans and the Westerns, playing, of course, this kind of music, waltz, and so in this case it came from this what we have researched, and not from 2001, but it's inevitable to think about this, of course. And for instance, the karaoke, we knew that karaoke is also something that's like a national hobby in Philippines. And my DOP in studio, because I had 3 for this film, my Portuguese DOP, or the Portuguese DOP of this film, Rui Poças, he told me a story some years ago, saying that once he was in Manila, and there was these guys in a bar with a karaoke system, and one of them pulled the gun and pointed to him and said, "Okay, you sing My Way, or put your money here, sing My Way, or I'll shoot you." Now, if you have the 10 points on 10, you'll be alive. If not, I'm going to shoot you. This is what he told me. You don't, I mean, I don't believe it completely, but. And then he said that, for instance, it's very suspicious because he said in the end he had 10. So he was saved. And some years later, I thought, okay, Rui, interesting story. And then some years later, I read in the newspaper in Manila, in Philippines, the My Way gang was finally put in prison. So apparently, there was these guys robbing, and I think they killed some people, and they were obsessed with My Way.
That's a good story.
It's a true story. And then, okay, so I arrived at Manila with My Way on my head. And so I asked this guy to sing My Way, and it was one take, and he just started to cry. So, yeah.
All right, one more question. Over there in the back, can we get the mic to them?
I can speak up with this.
Oh, we'd just like to get it on the recording, so just a sec. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll try to tie this together. Eu sinto muito, me desculpas. I'm sorry, I have not seen actually Miguel Gomes, your films, but maybe my question, which concerns Payal's.
Could you speak up a bit?
Okay, I
Yeah.
can speak louder, but I didn't want to speak too loud. I'm sorry, and not in Portuguese, I'm sorry, I haven't seen your film, Miguel, but I hope this question may relate. You're speaking about yearning, women yearning, and I think there was this incredibly, for myself, this moving experience when it seemed that Prabha kind of liberated herself from that yearning, and in doing so found kind of this chosen family, this multilingual chosen family in a place that was foreign to her, which maybe can relate. And I just wondered, to put that out there and maybe without a clear question, of course in travel and places where we learn another language, like Portuguese for me, you find yourselves, it's temporary, but it's freeing, it's a way in the transgression of Anu's kind of illicit romance, accepting that, Prabha's accepting of this, she found a new family. And I guess just that idea of chosen family, or were that given to you, and maybe something about language and travel, but if there's some question in that, I wonder how that informs your films, or if it means something to you. Thank you. To both of you.
I think that was the kind of crux of my film, and I think it comes from, even in filmmaking, you work with a lot of people, you work with them over time, and they become your family. And family in India means it's a very complicated thing, because, and also every relationship is really well defined, like your father, mother, all these family relationships mean a very heavy thing. And there are a lot of connotations to these relationships. But friendships are not that defined. They can be anything you and your friend want it to be. And I find that when something is not that well defined, it has a lot of possibility for being something really wonderful. And that was the proposition.
We'll take one last very quick question. I do request you to be as brief as you can, and we'll go to that in the row there.
My question is to Payal. First of all, I wanted to congratulate you on the win as well, but also say it was wonderful hearing words like FTII and Mohammed Ali wrote from you. One thing I really agree and appreciate also, which you pointed out, was the limitations also free you up in a way in which you have to innovate and learn and do things that you still want to do. Would you care to comment on things that you've had to do with those limitations, but you would go back and change them? What are those limitations you would like to change them, say, in the education you've received and the other sources of material that you've gone out and learned from, what are those limitations that you would free you up then, but you'd go back and change them for yourself? If any, obviously.
I mean, in terms of like filmmaking, I would say none I would change, because that is the entire point of limitations. I have no control over them, and that is it. That is fun. And filmmaking anyway is that you come up with a lot of things change as it happens. But I feel that I don't think of it as a limitation, but in a space sometimes, like especially in a school like FTI, there is a kind of pressure for students to make a certain kind of film that would be accepted in film festivals. And that for me becomes a limitation that students impose on themselves, and that's not good. You should, I think that I could have been sillier sometimes, and being a bit more free as a student filmmaker would have led me to explore a bit more without this whole worry about being accepted. And that also, like, I think with filmmakers like Miguel Gomes, who every film, it's like a new form and it's a new way of making films. And that kind of curiosity, I think, especially for a student, is really, it's the best time that you can do so many things. And cinema should bring you, like, at least for me, it brings me joy to work every day. It's such a privileged profession. Like, to be making films, it's really privileged. And to challenge yourself to be like constantly rethinking, not challenge in the way that, oh, this is a challenge, but the kind of questioning all the time your position and your privilege and what you want to explore.
All right, we're going to wrap there because Payal has to run over to the Time 100 Gala. She's one of... so thank you so much, Miguel, Payal. This was an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much to the audience.
Thank you, Miguel.